Amongst a vast and diverse sea of topics exists one path where everything converges: mecha anime.
私は鹿と人のハイブリッド。
Not only are there incredibly popular series such as Evangelion that you find crossing over with every single game, but there are also lesser-known masterpieces like 86 that slightly dip into the mecha category and pull in fans of completely different genres. In fact, mecha is so appreciated that Japan built an 18-meter tall Gundam in real life. That's something that actually happened. Of all the mecha games and anime you've probably played and watched though, one specifically shines above the rest as the greatest mecha of all time. In this video, we'll be talking about Attack on Titan. Honkai Star Rail is officially a mecha with the release of Firefly, and believe me, she is fire. This is a joke about Firefly being fire type. And today, I'm gonna be going over everything you need to know about Firefly so that you can build her and use her, or so you can just know what she does before you swipe. My name is Braxophone, and let's talk about Firefly. Firefly's initial trailer confused me a little bit, because the first thing to come to mind was, "You would not believe your eyes." Yo, can we cut that? Actually, I don't want to get demonetized. Firefly is an absolutely insane destruction unit that completely changes the game. At least, I'd like to make myself believe. Basically, Firefly comes down to breaking three things: enemy toughness, your bank account, and your heart. Firefly is also the first character to generate a percentage of energy with a skill, and you absolutely need it. Because what the f is this? Firefly's skill takes 40% of Sam's HP and gives her 60% of her max energy, and also gives 25% action forward. 40% HP is crazy, by the way. That's 10 times the amount Jinglu takes every turn, all at once. And for a destruction character, it's also kinda scary just because destruction characters have more taunt. Because for some reason, everyone wants Firefly dead, and according to the 2.2 story, she still has one left. Luckily though, her talent makes it so the more HP Sam is missing, the less damage she actually takes. Below 20% HP, she has a 40% damage reduction stat if you're at talent level 10, which is kinda crazy. Once you're full on energy though, you dispel all debuffs and you can activate Tinkerbell mode, which advances Sam's action forward by 100% to instantly take action and enhances both her basic and skill. Firefly also gets a huge speed increase and a bonus to enemy break damage received and weakness break efficiency to help you break enemies' backs the way Dr. Ratio did to Aventurine. Essentially, this is just an enhanced state for Sam that has a fixed speed of 70. So Firefly's speed stat doesn't actually affect when Sam's enhanced state ends, and you'll want Firefly to be as fast as possible to get as many turns in as she can during the fact. This also makes Firefly a giga negative SP character, a bit more so than other DPS without Bronya, unless you intentionally basic attack, which can happen sometimes. Also, Sam gets 2 swords, which if you watched SAO, is better than 1 sword. And now that Sam's attacks are enhanced, it's time to set the seas ablaze. Sam's enhanced attack hits 3 enemies, restores HP back to Sam, and applies a fire weakness to the main target enemy. Unrelated, Silverwolf found dead in a ditch. The main difference with Firefly and Boothill's weakness add though is that they don't actually lower enemy resistances. Silverwolf found alive in a ditch. The damage dealt by Sam is based on Firefly's break effect stat and attack stat, and she also has a major trace that gives her up to 50% super break damage based on her break effect stats, without the need for Harmony Trailblazer. I'm not gonna lie though, Firefly and Trailblazer are basically married because that super break damage when they're not together is like hitting the rock with a wet napkin. The super break damage you get from Harmony Trailblazer is a separate instance from Firefly's personal super break, meaning that you want both. But with such high requirements to get the super break to activate in the first place, how do you get so much?
With violence.
Firefly has a trace that gives her break effect based on her attack stat. For every 10 attacks she has above 1800, she gains 0.8% break effect. If you take the average amount of Firefly attack that you'd get with a free-to-play Herta light cone, completely maxed out, and then add the relic stats you'd want, combined with the other passive buffs from light cone secondary effects, and lastly, other characters, that adds up to roughly a fuck ton of break effect. Now, a lot of people see Firefly's damage and think it looks mid by comparison to characters like Boothill or Acheron. I call this the Eula effect. Yes, there are characters that hit harder in one specific attack or instance of damage, but a lot of players forget that Firefly is incredibly fast due to that extra speed. At ultimate level 10, you get 60 speed, so she's attacking super fast and consistently significantly, and her damage per hit isn't even bad to begin with. She may not have the damage per screenshot, but you spent all her money during the main story and she's not gonna let that slide. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, Sam can break toughness on anything. When Sam is in Carolina Reaper mode, enemies have their toughness bar reduced by 55% of whatever it would be if they were weak to fire. This basically just means that Firefly is flexible and useful in all content that can be broken. I guess you could say she's a pretty game-breaking character. You don't really care about Firefly basic attacks, but here's what they do just so you know, and so I don't get a Reddit hate thread on me this time. Finally, Firefly's technique has Sam slam down on enemies. Wait, where have I seen this before? This gives enemies a fire weakness for 2 turns going into the battle, which can give your team a head start towards breaking all the enemies. Now, lastly, talent priority doesn't really matter since you all pre-farmed Firefly to max her anyways, but you'll want to focus on leveling Firefly's ultimate, then talent, then skill, and lastly, basic attack. Firefly is supposed to die 3 times throughout her lifespan. You can tell she's running out of time by the fact that every character on her banner is also dead. Speaking of dead, your Trailblaze power reserves are gonna be running on empty, because Firefly gets not 1, but 2 new items to farm. The first is the Iron Cavalry set that gives break effect on the 2-piece and defense ignore, as well as super break damage defense ignore with the 4-piece. You can technically also run any mixed set of break effect 2-pieces if you have them, or even throw in 2 pieces of speed set. But as far as I and the formulas in the game are concerned, Iron Cavalry is just the quantum set for break characters, which means it's busted. The second thing you'll want to farm is the new Forge of the Compagni Lantern set, which is Italian for every support can use this. It gives 6% speed, which is 6 speed for most characters, and also increases break effect against enemies with a fire weakness. It's an amazing set for speed tuning, but also to increase break damage and thus super break damage, which Firefly definitely wants. For alternatives, you can always go with Talia if you already have a good set, since it gives break effect and extra break effect for being fast. As for the build, well, let me ask you this first. Would you rather fight 100 5-year-olds or 25 10-year-olds? Obviously, it doesn't matter, you would win. But what about just one 5-year-old with a debilitating disease? Well, you definitely win, because that kid is Firefly with a crit build. Yeah, don't you feel like shit now? You do not care about crit on this character. Instead, you want to focus on attack to give her more break effect. You'll want an attack percent chest, speed boots, attack percent orb, and a break effect rope. Rather than shoot for a specific break effect, you just want as many break effect substats as you can get. As for speed though, you want to make sure that you're just above 150, so that way when you gain 60 speed from her level 10 ultimate, you'll be at 210 speed and get 4 attacks per ultimate window, which is a lot of damage. Other than that, attack percent and effect res are both solid substats to aim for. Here's a build summary for video skippers. If you're looking for a super free-to-play friendly character, then let me introduce one to you. This is our wife, Jingliu, who gains 50 crit rate for pressing the E button. Jokes aside, Firefly is pretty free-to-play friendly in my opinion, because you can quite literally give her the Herta Shop light cone from 1.0 and cause the next nuclear fallout. Obviously, her signature light cone is best. It gives a huge amount of break effect and also applies a debuff to make enemies receive more break damage. But the next best thing is On the Fall of an Aeon, which gives a huge amount of attack, which thus gives Firefly a ton of break effect. Because there aren't many other light cones that give break effect or as much attack, the other best options fall behind. At S5, Indelible Promise is the next best thing for the break effect, and the Moles Welcome You is right behind that, but you need to use a basic attack at some point for that, and you'll never get the final attack bonus from her ultimate since it doesn't do damage. The next best light cones are Something Irreplaceable at S1 for the base attack and attack buff, and otherwise you have the option of Nowhere to Run for the high base attack if you bought the battle pass. Flames of Far is sort of bait since it doesn't really benefit Firefly outside of the heal. Now here's a summary of all the light cone options that are worth using as of making this video. Keep in mind that these can change based on the content, and this chart is meant to be more of a general guideline than anything else. Firefly struggles from the same team building things that many other break characters do. All 2 of them. But she does have some advantages and disadvantages depending on who you have at your disposal. Her first team is basically gonna be Bootill's team, except there's one specific change that is very important to the overall max damage output of the team. You want to play Ruanmei, Trailblazer, and Firefly all together. This is so that you can maximize her damage with Super Break using Harmony Trailblazer, and Ruanmei is gonna increase break efficiency, which does help the Super Break damage, but also delay the enemies from recovering from break, as well as give your whole team some speed bonus. And my cat is attacking my— ow! But you'll also notice I'm running Gallagher Gallagher here. Because Firefly is able to imprint a fire weakness on enemies, Gallagher becomes so much more valuable. Now, he was already a super strong support to begin with. A lot of people were calling him the free-to-play Lolcha, except now with break teams and the fact that he builds break effect and the fact that you can apply fire weakness, this means that Gallagher can get so many breaks. And if not breaks, at least break damage from his ultimate and his enhanced basic attack. If you can afford to run Gallagher here, he does add a lot of overall damage to the team for running a sustain unit. But let's say you don't want to run a sustain unit. Well, you can actually opt to just run Bronya, and if you kill the content fast enough, there's no problems at all. Firefly is a pseudo self-sustaining unit, and as long as enemies are attacking her, she will probably stay alive just because of how frequently she attacks in her enhanced state and how much she heals. Now, with that said, this is some high level stuff. I definitely wouldn't do this unless you know what you're doing and have fully invested characters, and this is going to become significantly easier if you have Firefly Eidolons. But let's say you don't have Ruan-Mei. Well, you can always just opt to run Bronya instead. I also put Adventurine in here just to show that you can run other sustained characters. It doesn't really matter too much. It's just that Gallagher adds the most damage, but you can run someone like Adventurine if you just want to play it super safe and not worry about damage. The same way you can play most other sustaining characters. But the way Bronya works is actually very different from her normal team comps because you have to speed tune her in a different way since Firefly is able to get a bunch more speed. Your Bronya is not going to be able to go 210 speed while your Firefly goes 211. That's just not going to happen, right? But there is a way to make Bronya speed tuned to your Firefly. You can either go with your 150 to 155 speed Firefly and a 163 speed Bronya, or you can go with a 177 speed Bronya. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly that much, but you want to stay within about 5 speed points of that. And what you'll do with 163 speed Bronya is that you'll always want to basic attack first, and then you'll want to alternate skills and basic attacks. And whenever you're not in Firefly's ultimate, you want to basic attack with Bronya. This should help you mitigate some of the skill point usage, especially if you have E0 Firefly. If you run 177 speed Bronya, you basically need Eidolon 1, and her light cone is massively helpful here too, just to make sure you have all the skill points, but essentially you just basic attack first, and then you skill every single turn. This is not a very forgiving playstyle, and I only recommend this to people that are very knowledgeable about the game and very practiced with Bronya and speed tuning. But if you don't have that, I would highly recommend Ruan-Mei as a pickup for this character, and just because Ruan-Mei is such a valuable support in the grand scheme of the game. I also quickly want to add that Bronya is going to be better than Sparkle for this, because even though Sparkle can bring you action forward by 50%, Firefly having a super high speed basically means that the 50% is less effective overall. It doesn't give you as many extra turns as just using 100% action forward. Plus, on top of that, Bronya can give you some attack buff, whereas Firefly, most of her kit is going into crit, which ends up being a useless stat for Sam. And last but not least, you can run either Silverwolf or Pela if you preferred to. Both these characters will massively shred enemy defense, and if you run Silverwolf, you're actually going to get some res shred as well. My favorite thing about Firefly, aside from the planet-ending Gundam, is her eyes. The multicoloration is honestly just so pretty, and meanwhile, she's such a pure character. You can see the galaxy in her eyes, and she can see the money in your wallet, which is why her second Eidolon is completely fucking busted. I don't want to bait anyone into pulling for Eidolons, just because I always think new characters are going to be more important than copies, but I am still going to go over what her Eidolons do. First off, E1 is just a solid damage jump with 15% defense ignore on her enhanced skill that stacks up with other defense ignores from characters and her relic set. But it's also a saved skill point for every single enhanced skill. This basically makes it so that you can play Firefly with Bronya without any issues for skill points, which makes her teams a lot more flexible too. But once you have E1, E2 actually looks insane because it gives Sam an extra turn after breaking or defeating an enemy with an enhanced basic or skill, which adds a ridiculous amount of damage potential to Firefly as a whole. It can only be triggered once per turn, so you can't chain it forever, but if played in a perfect scenario, it can lead you to getting something like 8 attacks per ultimate instead of 4. And all of those skill points are going to be absolutely free. Now, E3 is a skill and basic attack level up, which I'm gonna be honest, does basically nothing for you. E4 is an effect res increase, which also does nothing for you sometimes. And E5 is an ultimate and talent level up. At this point, the joke's not even funny anymore. And lastly, E6 gives Firefly res pen when she's in her ultimate, and also increases weakness break efficiency by 50%, which is absolutely huge for the 3 of you that still have money after just released. Between her light cone and Eidolons, both E1 and her light cone give similar gains. So the winner is easily Ruan-Mei. If you want to maximize Firefly's damage, Ruan-Mei does a ton for it, but not only that, she's great for so many other teams. With that said, if you already have Ruan-Mei, I personally would go for Eidolons over her light cone if On the Fall of an Aeon is available for you. But if that one's occupied by our wife Jingliu, then the light cone isn't a bad option. It all just comes down to what you have available on your account, but as usual, I would always go for more units over more copies of one unit. Thanks for watching, everyone, and may your wallets be safe this gacha season.